One of our listeners has a fantastic idea to keep the Iron Skillet alive and also spice up spring games.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Stephen Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 years. We're brought to you today by Nissan. I will tell you later on in the show about the Nissan Team of the Week. Make sure to check out the new Nissan Armada. Might need a hookup from Nissan. That Armada looks like it could fit my entire family, and I may be in need of a new car soon. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel or your favorite podcast platform so the Simcox family can ride in style. But we're going to get to some basketball, some news on Jamie Dixon and his roster management. Frankie Collins hitting the portal. Vashawn Ouellette already hit the portal. Some concerning things happening, or maybe not concerning things, depending on what you thought about that team last year. We start, though, with football. And one reason I love doing this show is it's interactive. You guys can hit me up in YouTube comments or message me on social media, and I get to hear your ideas. I hear your thoughts. It's awesome. So yesterday, I discussed 5 players that you need to watch out for once spring practice begins this week. I also talked about how there's not going to be a spring game. TCU football is not playing a spring game this year. That's been a hot topic of conversation this offseason. Matt Rule came out earlier this offseason and was like, look, Nebraska, they always do the spring game really big, right? It's a sellout. It's on TV. He said, we're not doing that. And honestly, it's about to become a thing of the past because there's so much tampering going on in college football right now. We don't want to give other programs the opportunity to see our players, especially our young players, in an environment like that and open up the door to communication. So we're not going to do that. And he's been the loudest voice about it, but multiple schools have followed suit and they're slowing things down. But then Deion Sanders a couple weeks ago was like, look, we're going to do a spring game because it's good for the fans. And I would love in the future to see a world where this is treated almost like the NFL preseason. So you bring a team in or you go visit a team and you spend a week practicing against one another or a few days practicing against one another. And then you play a preseason game. And it helps you evaluate your team because you get to see them against different people. It's awesome for the fans. And so Fran Brown in Syracuse said, hey, we'll do that. And they are currently working to see if they can get a deal together to actually make that happen. And after yesterday's show, Dion, one of our listeners and YouTube viewers, he commented on YouTube and said an unpopular idea for now, but scratch the regular season game against SMU and move it to a spring football game. Full week of practice against them and everything. Both programs are trying to accomplish similar things. So keep the rivalry alive while not obliterating each other's seasons. Just a thought. This is a great idea. Now, as far as this season goes, I just think logistically that couldn't happen. But we all know this is the final Iron Skillet in the immediate future. Don't know if and when the game's going to start up again. And TCU for years kept that series going, even though they didn't really have to. And then they finally decided they were going to move on from it. And it coincided with SMU getting into the ACC. And TCU took a lot of heat nationally from people who were like, well, this is just another example of historic rivalries being demolished in college football. Which it's hard for me to take that seriously when the reality is a number of these writers who were talking about this and lamenting this were not covering the Iron Skillet. And I get why for a long time SMU was not relevant. And that's why TCU ultimately ended the series. Now, they've done a great job under Rhett Lashley, and before that, Sonny Dykes, of getting off the mat and getting that program rolling again. But that was not the case post-death penalty for almost 2 decades. And TCU kept playing that ball game. And it was a footnote in the national landscape. Maybe it got mentioned briefly on SportsCenter or College Game Day. You probably got an article from a Texas writer A writer in the state of Texas, whether Dave Campbell's or a local paper. But that was it. Sonny Dykes takes the job at TCU. It adds some juice to the rivalry, but still, even with all the changes that have happened recently, it's not something that is on everyone's radar. And TCU is scrapping that game because they don't want to play 11 Power 4 opponents every single year. Now, is that right or wrong? I can't tell you. I would love for it to keep going, but I get where the admin is coming from. They want to make sure they have a guaranteed home game, another home game on their schedule. You can't expect SMU, especially now, to agree to come to Fort Worth every year. So you cut that out, and you're going to replace it with games that should give you a better chance to win, and that you can also play at Amon Carter. But this seems like an outstanding compromise. It's good for the coaching staffs of these teams because they get to evaluate players in real live situations against good competition, both in the joint practices and the potential game. You can still hand off the skillet to whoever wins, and that can be the incentive to treat it like a real game. So while you can still get your young guys some reps and some opportunities, but you approach it like it's a real deal game that counts in the standings. Maybe in the world of collective bargaining, you could even go as far as saying, hey, let's get the boosters together, throw in a pot of cash, winning team gets to split it amongst themselves to make things more interesting. And to give the players the urgency and the motivation to play like it's a regular season game. But I love this idea. Now, how likely is it? I would say not very. But I threw out North Texas when I was thinking about this after Dion mentioned it and the fallout from that. I said, what about like North Texas, right? Because they could just scoot over from Denton and you got yourself a good situation there. And I don't think that's a horrible matchup, but this would give you a better indicator of where you're at. And it would be really beneficial for the coaches too. I think especially given the fact like coaches talk about eliminating the spring game because of the portal. And while I can see what their point is, evaluating your team against good competition gives you the opportunity to say, okay, what else do we need? What does our team need to add in the spring portal window? Are we in a good place or do we need to add more firepower? I've thrown this anecdote out before, but last year, Sonny was asked on 365 Sports, how do you feel about this running back room? And he was very complimentary of the guys they had. Oh, yeah, we feel great about it. Cam Cook's been wonderful. We got some freshmen, Jeremy Payne and Nate Palmer, that should be contributors. Trey Sanders is healthier than ever. And then the game started. And suddenly you're like, oh, they should have gone out and got a running back. And technically they did this offseason in Kavorian Barnes, but it wasn't the type of 3-down back that I think they really need. But if you played SMU in a preseason game, you could actually get a great feel for, okay, where are we at? What do we need to do? What changes do we need to make so that we can be competitive right away? Especially this season when you have a tough schedule. Now, it wouldn't really be applicable this season because you're playing SMU in the regular season. But you start with North Carolina. You play SMU in non-conference. You have a very difficult conference schedule. This is the perfect offseason or perfect year to say, you know what, we got to be ready for that. We need to figure out where we are and what we can do well, so that when we hit the field and things are live and real, we have a great understanding of what we need to do and what we need to add from a roster perspective. This has always been the case in college football, but even more so now, because you're seeing more coaches sort of detach themselves from the X's and O's part of things. And it's about talent acquisition and culture. We'll get a good feel for where you need to add talent. And in this specific example, it also gives you the benefit of keeping a rivalry game going, giving the fans a chance to see your team, and also get a good picture of what you need to do with roster management for the rest of the offseason. When we come back, TCU's best player last year has hit the transfer portal. Jamie Dixon's got his work cut out for him next season. To our friends at Nissan, I'm available. I got 4 kids. I got car seats. My wife wants an Armada. Isn't that right, Kristen? She just shook her head yes. You can't see that. You definitely can't see it on a podcast because it's an audio medium. You can't see it on YouTube either because she's out of the frame. But she shook her head yes because she wants that new Nissan Armada. This week's Armada team of the week is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs fought their way through the most rugged conference college basketball to not only make the NCAA tournament, but knock off the back-to-back national champion and Hall of Fame coaches en route to the Sweet 16. They accomplished this without their second leading scorer for most of SEC play and without their leading scorer and rebounder so far in the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Arkansas Razorbacks have done. It is clear our team of the week is ready to conquer the roads with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada, which I need in my driveway, or any Nissan outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada Rogue or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. I'm going to go to shopusa.com to see what kind of deals they have right now, because I have 2 cars that are not treating me very well at the moment. I think this Nissan Armada could treat me better. Shop now at nissanusa.com. Again, that's nissanusa.com. Well, we have our first genuine surprise of the transfer portal period for TCU basketball. Vashawn Alette hit the portal, and I was personally disappointed because I still think Vashawn's a guy that could figure it out and be a really good player. But I understand he wants to move on. He turned the ball over a lot. He was asked to do more than he needed to last year, but he's going to take a chance elsewhere. Isaiah Manning hit the portal today. Again, not surprising. This was supposed to be the year where he stepped in and had a huge season. It didn't really happen. I know he dealt with some injuries, but the contributions just weren't there. But then today, Frankie Collins hit the portal. And for the first month of this season, not that TCU was having outstanding success, but Frankie Collins was their best player. He averaged over 11 points. He led the team in assists. He led the team in steals. But he had that foot injury against Vandy in that game in Dickies Arena. And that was the end of his season. But he had a medical red shirt, and it sounded like the plan was for him to return. He's getting another year of eligibility, but he's at least exploring his options in the portal. What this tells me, and this is not like a huge secret, maybe you had already come to this conclusion in your own mind, this is a complete rebuild. This offseason is critical. Jamie and his staff, they missed on the portal last year. Winslow, it didn't work. Collins, I mean, I think it ended up being a good take, but you really can't evaluate given the injury. I'll let one and done. Had some nice moments, but ultimately won't be a contributor moving forward. They missed. And that happens in this new era of college basketball where you're essentially rebuilding your roster every year. I think Baylor missed in the portal this offseason. They had a super talented freshman in VJ Edgecombe, probably the second pick in the NBA draft. They couldn't put people around him. They didn't have much depth. They ended up failing. I think Kansas has struggled to evaluate both on the court skills and also just guys that fit what they want to do and what Bill Self wants. The problem is those teams, when they have down seasons, they have so much talent that they're still tournament squads. TCU is not in that spot. So what are they going to do? You have Caden Edwards coming in next year, true freshman from Duncanville, who's a phenom. Maybe Ashton Simmons and RJ Jones get in the rotation. They're guys that redshirted this year. We know they made a priority to, according to Jamie Plunkett, they want to keep around guys like Jace Posey, David Punch, Malik Diallo. So we know those are some guys that they want to build around. Now you need guards. And you can find those guys in the portal. But once again, dipping into the portal to find your floor general, to find your point guard, they've had mixed results there. Now, Nick Giramani from Sports Illustrated, he said Brock Harding, Iowa transfer, is down to 3 schools: TCU, Louisville, and Washington. Brock Harding, who played at Iowa his first 2 seasons of his career, this past season, 9 points a game, 5 assists, and 2 rebounds. He is a true point guard. He's getting teams in their sets. He's distributing the basketball. He's setting guys up for buckets. That's what he does. That could be your Frankie Collins replacement, but you have to land him. You don't have the luxury of time here. You don't have the luxury of letting guys develop. You have to go find people who can play right now. And maybe the coaching staff looked at it and said, you know what? We like you, Frankie, but it doesn't make sense for us to have a 6th-year senior running the show here when we're sort of in a rebuild and we need players who can impact this team right away, but also have some eligibility left, more than just 1 year. So I don't think you need to go try to convince Frankie Collins to stay. Now, I wouldn't argue with him if he had a change of heart, because I think he's a good player and I think he could help this team. But the main priority here now, you have to find dudes who can go score and can shoot. Because what killed this team last year, more than anything, they would just have these horrific scoring droughts. Could not throw the ball in the ocean. And they would get down early in ball games. And because they don't have much offensive firepower, it just would kind of compound on itself to the point that you couldn't come back and get off the mat. I don't think letting Vashawn Alette or Frankie Collins walk is egregious in itself. But you better go get some talent to back up what they brought to the table. I want to close with this. There are a lot of things that I take issue with Jamie Dixon about. But there's this idea circulating around TCU circles that I just want to address. There have been some transfers that have gone on to other schools lately and had big-time success. Jaden Ledee at San Diego State, PJ Haggerty at Memphis, first Tulsa, then went to Memphis. Micah Peavy and Jacoby Coles had good years at Georgetown and Grand Canyon, respectively. There are a lot of things you can criticize Jamie for. I don't think losing guys to the portal is a big one, because a lot of these players, yes, they were productive. They also went down to G5 hoops and did this. Now, Peavy did it in the Big East, and I think they should have kept Micah around. Jacoby was just never healthy. PJ Haggerty, I don't know what happened there. He was supposed to be the dude. I don't know why he left. he was poised to step in there, as Mike Miles and Damian Ball were leaving, but he decides to go elsewhere and he can fill it up. But I mean, we knew that coming out of high school, like that was his whole thing. So I don't think Jamie like ruined him as a player. I believe he went down a level in hoops and started to thrive. So it's just something that I've seen thrown out there that I disagree with. I still think the biggest issue is they're just not talented enough. And that's what this offseason is for, is to get that adjusted and get that figured out. And Jamie Dixon and his coaching staff are working on that currently. When we come back, TCU women's basketball, they play Notre Dame on Saturday. We'll talk about that and more next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Supply House. If you work in the HVAC world, if you're an electrician, if you're a plumber, you need to try out Supply House today. Getting supplies you need from the store for skilled trade can be difficult. Supply House makes it easy for you. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a competitive inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you can find exactly what you need coast to coast. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. And again, that promo code is SH5. Supply House. Give it a try today.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Before we go, really good win for TCU women's basketball on Sunday. They make it to the Sweet 16, and Haley Van Lith was talking after the game. One cool thing about the tournament, they do the press conferences on the podium, and then they have breakout sessions in the locker room. So you can go in and talk to players. And Frogs Insider, which is Jamie Plunkett and Melissa Treebwasser, they do a podcast. They do a lot of coverage of TCU athletics. I'm not sure who asked the question, but Haley got emotional first in the post-game presser, just talking about everything she's been through. And someone followed up in the locker room and asked her about it. And she gave this really outstanding answer about how the last few years have been really tough for her with the way she's been open to social media and all the criticism that she's taken. It took her to a dark place, like a really dark place. And for her personally, she talked about her faith and how she feels like it ended up being a great testimony of God's faithfulness in her life, despite the difficulties. But it was a good reminder to me about the human side of all of this. And this is an outstanding story. Like, she did take a ton of heat after her season at LSU. It didn't go as they planned. They got knocked out by Caitlin Clark in Iowa in the Elite Eight. She had that matchup against Clark on defense for most of the night, and she struggled, as pretty much everybody did against Caitlin Clark. But she sort of became a scapegoat for an LSU team that underachieved. Before that, she seemed to take a lot of heat at Louisville because she was out there. She wanted to win, and she was vocal about that. But Mark Campbell has just completely turned this thing around. He's given her the opportunity to play the way that she wants to play. He's trusted her to run an offense effectively, to be a distributor, and also go get her own shot when she needs to. And she turned this thing around in a hurry, as did the rest of the team. I did not expect this so quickly. But they're in the Sweet 16. They have a chance to take on Notre Dame to make it to the Elite Eight, when they will most likely play Texas. But we always know how upsets work in March Madness. It's a fun team to root for right now. If you haven't sat down and watched a game, this weekend's a perfect time to do it, because they space the floor, they can shoot, they're just a fun team to watch. We'll be back on Wednesday. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform.